Welcome to Behind the Campaign, the podcast where marketers pull back the curtain on some of their favorite marketing campaigns. I'm joined today by the team from Optimizely. We have Gregory Heinz, Senior Director of Brand and Digital Experience, and Dan Reid, the Creative Director. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Fair warning, I have been an Optimizely CMP fangirl for a very long time. I was a customer way back in NewsCred days, so I was with you guys from NewsCred through Welcome to Optimizely, so I've been with you guys for a long time, big advocate for the platform. Before we kind of get into the specific campaign we're talking about today, the campaign was part of a bigger effort, right? It was part of this kind of rebrand, repositioning of the platform. So you've changed, the logo, the colors that we've been used to for so many years with Optimizely. How did you make the decision to kind of go through this rebrand and repositioning, and how did that conversation go?
Man, Dan, I'll let you take that one because you were actually here from the start when it kind of kicked off. I think that was many years in the making from when you joined the company.
Yeah. So when I joined, I was pretty vocal about not liking the brand. Love the people, love the products, but I thought the brand needed some work. Some of our early meetings, I appreciated people letting me be honest. I remember the first time I flew to New York to optimize the HQ, I was meeting with the MLT and I was kind of trying to tiptoe into the conversation of what I thought needed to be done with the brand. And at one point they were just like, just be honest with us. And so I was honest with them and they took it very well. I think the first time I proposed changing the logo, people were like, whoa, that's too crazy. We can't do that. That can't happen. I think it was more of a process of chipping away and making people comfortable with the idea of rebranding than this thing that just happened. It was quite a bit of work up front, but I think it was worth it.
I'd say you used the terms like a kind of rebrand. I mean, at the end of the day, I think I don't even realize I knew what I was getting into when I started. So I joined back in August, and right when we were kind of getting into really the creative strategy and the creative direction. And I mean, this wasn't a little refresh. This was a complete reinvention of who we are, how we show up. And I think the thing that excited me the most is right from the very beginning, we made the decision to say, okay, like we're going to go bold and big and bright is the way it really came out. And I think the alignment between the team and that was really special. And there were some moments early in the strategy process where you could see the shift. It's like, we were kind of debating, do we kind of go direction A or direction B? And even B was a bit scary, but it was like, it felt so right. And we all kept going and gravitating. And it was like that permission for us to do this together. And that was a really special piece to it.
Yeah, I think, Dan, you made a good point about, it was kind of baby steps, getting people used to this possible change. How did you go about this conversation with people who were very ingrained with this brand, or maybe were around or part of the previous branding that had a very, strong connection to it? How did you have that conversation with them saying, look, I think we really need to change direction here?
Well, I'm very persistent. So I think I was just bothering people until they let me do it. But no, the real answer is I just kept taking it up the chain. And finally, I pitched it to our CEO. I think he felt that that particular moment in time wasn't the right time. That coincided with Corey, our SVP of marketing, joining. And she's really the one who did the final push and was like, hey guys, I think we really need to do this. I think we're onto something. And so I think she was the final piece in getting it over the hump. But it was basically me just taking my dog and pony show on the road to whoever would listen and then eventually getting a yes.
And I think that's sometimes the way it needs to be done in big companies, right? Like Optimizely, it's like you kind of have to talk to a lot of different people and get their feedback and kind of do that in a kind of stair-step manner. So I think that makes complete sense. So this wasn't just a rebrand though, right? It wasn't just a changing of the logo or changing of the colors. This was kind of a repositioning a little bit. Did those two things happen in conjunction, or did one kind of come before the other?
Yeah, I mean, we did. Go ahead, Greg, and then I can jump in.
Yeah, I was going to say definitely in conjunction. I think we started obviously with the creativity piece, and that was kind of the first thing we started to share and shop around, especially with some of the senior leaders. Even in those early days, they kept coming back and being like, it's the messaging matters just as more. Andy, when you were talking about like your kind of love of the product back in the CMP days, I think that was really what we were up against is, the reality is the history of Optimizely is this collection of companies that have been acquired, and, the brand name, the legacy is through Optimizely as an A/B testing platform. And that's what so many people still associate us with. But We've brought in these additional elements like a content marketing platform, a DAM, a personalization tool, the acquisition with Episerver, bringing in the whole CMS product. All of these things, they've done an amazing job bringing them together into one platform. And we called it Optimize We Want a couple years ago. I think the team did a great job positioning that. But it's not where we were today. And all of a sudden you kept seeing like that AI piece come more and more forward for everybody. And we had some decision points where it's like, we had a great AI tool. The thought was like, do we pull it out, make it its own thing? And I think one of the things I'm really proud of is we had some hard conversations about that. And we really ended up bringing the two together, having two competing brands. We now have one master brand tied to the core Optimizely name, and AI and the even the color scheme and the things that represented it are front and center in how we do it. So I think that to me, the positioning of the AI platform for marketing was a key outcome to this.
So switching gears a little bit, walk me through the birth of this character who I think was meant to support this rebrand and this repositioning, by the name of Mark Eting. Who kind of said that name out loud first, and how did that evolve into, yes, we think that this is the right direction to go?
The funny thing is that no one said him out loud. He was kind of hiding in a file for about a year.
Oh, wow.
I was working on a totally separate project over a year ago. And when I'm working, I make an absolute mess of Figma boards. That's just kind of part of what I enjoy. Like if you saw it, it would terrify you. But, there's just a lot of, there's a graveyard worth of, lost ideas in there somewhere. And that one, I just had the two words side by side. And I think I had put it away. I'd been like, I want to use this for something, but I don't want to use it for this brand. And so I sat on it for about a year with the obvious fear that someone else might run with it. It might randomly appear somewhere in a billboard. And then this opportunity came up with Can, with the rebrands, and it just all came together. Like we didn't even have, or I didn't have a character in mind. I just had two words.
I'm going to be perfectly honest here. When I first saw it, I was like, who's Mark Eting?
You're not.
So I'm sure you get that a lot.
Yeah. And that's been fun. I mean, Greg, you were there, but I think, was it Deloitte?
It was, yeah. One of our partners took Deloitte over too. So we had a 90-foot billboard overlooking the Crozet down in Cannes, France. And I mean, just what a proud moment to launch the rebrand. But as one of our partner leaders brought over this key partner of ours, they were staring at it, and you could see him looking up, and he's just like, I don't get it. And he made him pause. He made him sit with it. And then all of a sudden, he saw the light bulb go off. He's like, he's like, that's brilliant. And I think your question is what we wanted people to ask. So that we even set up paid search campaigns to respond to the search term, who is Mark Eting? We have our stories, our landing pages are designed to answer that question. So we wanted to create the intrigue. And to me, I think the way that it got brought to life through the illustration work, I think that was what really made it work. And we even had people kind of commenting on the billboard. There was an article that was talking about the best and worst billboards throughout the event. And we didn't make either list. We made the list of weirdest. To me, like that was like an honor. We had a category to ourselves, and he's like, the guy who wrote it was a well-written piece. He's like, I don't know if this is supposed to be AI generated or what they're getting at. He's like, but it made me feel something like none of the other ads did. So that I was really proud about.
Well, it's funny because if you think about the first, I don't even know if you remember this, but the first version of Mark, just kind of holding up a coffee cup. He didn't look that interesting. And then we had him look over, we had Andre draw him looking over his shoulder and just giving this look. And then that, I think, was the moment when we were like, all right, that's Mark. So definitely a process.
Very cool. So you mentioned the billboard, arguably the most kind of photographed wall in advertising during that 1 week. The entire creative industry walks past it. Walk me through how you got that placement. Did you always plan to have something kind of that big and unique during that time frame? Or, how did that come about?
It was interesting. Like we knew it was a place that we wanted to be at. We felt like, especially through the rebrand, that like this is a place we belong. But we also knew if we were going to go, we couldn't go small. We had to go big. So Elle Matthews, who leads our global field marketing team, she had we chatted about it early on, and she loved the idea as much as we did, was digging into it, working with some of the partnerships over there. And we were exploring different options, and we saw this placement, as you said, it's the most photographed wall. We just knew we couldn't turn it down. But then it also put, I think, the equal challenge on. It's like, well, what are we going to do with it? And there's so many ways you can take advantage of space like that, for better or for worse. And Dan, I'm just really proud of how, I think we really stuck to the creativity and a very simple message. And I think that to me is like one of the favorite parts about, marketing as well. You always talk about how Mark can say the things that we can't. I don't know if you want to chat about that a little bit, because it's kind of his superpower.
Yeah. I mean, I've been here for what, like 2.5 years now. And I was familiar with Gartner and Forrester, and, we have a great relationship with both, but they both have very strict rules about what you can say. So it's like, even if you are perceived as the best in the best corner, you can't really say you're the best. You can say that, you're one of the best, essentially. So I think that Mark kind of became that voice and has been that voice for us to say the things that we perhaps can't legally.
Yeah. And I guess being the weirdest is good too, like getting that accolade, right?
Yeah, I'll take that.
100%.
So you created Mark as sort of a fill-in, right, for your customers to be able to reflect what they wanted and what they needed back to them so they could kind of see themselves in Mark. How do you, and maybe this is a question for Dan, how do you kind of write and animate that character so he stays aspirational, right, without becoming kind of a parody of your own buyers?
Yeah, I think the distinction I would make is that Mark was never meant to represent our buyers directly, or really anyone but Mark directly. I think what we were tapping into was what you were talking about, which is having Mark as a vehicle for maybe things they're concerned about, maybe things they love. Just having Mark be that person that I think when Greg and I were talking with Giant Ant, the awesome animation studio that we've been working with, what did we say? I think it was just like, we want to hang out with that guy, which really isn't that complicated. Someone you want to hang out with, someone you can identify with. But I don't think, at least in my mind, he was ever meant to directly represent our customers.
Yeah, and there was this moment where we kept finding ways for him to make these complex things seem so effortless. And that was really where we leaned into in the initial series that we did with Giant Ant. And so it was fun that like some of the analogies that we would hear from people as we kind of showed these stories is they're like, oh, he feels like, the man from Dos Equis, the most interesting man in the world. He's the most interesting man in marketing. Or, there's even some like Chuck Norris legends as well. And to me, like that just meant like we're hitting the right notes. Like we're kind of, those are two, like one's obviously an advertising campaign, one's more of like a meme, but those are two things that just like distinctly and very vividly captured people's attention and emotions. And that's really what we're trying to do, because I think just you look back at the B2B playbook for so long, and it's just like everyone's out there just like pitching marketing features and product features. And it's like we're selling to marketers. So, we really thought back and reflected like, what is it that we want to see? What is it that we want to feel? And how do we create that? And so that was really, I think, was the driving force between a lot of this. And it was so much fun to do because we kept like, we'd see things come to life, and it's like times it would even exceed our expectations. And I think when the studios are having as much fun creating the work as we are planning it, I think that's when we're onto something.
Yeah, you really kind of flipped the script on the traditional SaaS B2B script where they're talking about features and benefits. Here's what our platform can do. Here's what is going to be good for you, whatever. Because I think as a marketer, I can attest to this. People kind of tune out to that after a while. We get so many people like emailing us and so many messages about choose my platform, choose this, do that. But you kind of flipped that script and created content that marketers would want to see, that marketers would want to hear more about, because it's not really necessarily focused on here's all of the things that our platform can do. It's more kind of personal to that. So tell us how that conversation really progressed into something that you could actually take and make into a marketing campaign, either one of you.
I could tell you it wasn't easy, because I think for a long time, like most, especially SaaS companies, like it is very product led. And I think it's interesting is, we talk about like being a marketing company, marketing to marketers. Like it's very easy to get technical and really kind of diving into, the features and benefits. But I don't think that's what resonates. I think, right, marketers are people who are out there creating digital experiences and getting copy that they want to, resonate and make people feel. I think our goal is, how do we replicate that, and how do we kind of meet their expectations of what good marketing is supposed to look like? And I don't know, I think that was kind of like a quiet mission of the rebrand as well. As like you talked about flipping the script of like B2B. I think the number one compliment I get when people see the brand is like, this doesn't feel like a B2B company. This feels like something else. I'm like, good. So that was the goal. So yeah, there were some tough conversations along the way, and I think we still have to prove it by connecting the dots from the brand story to the product message. Obviously, everything we do ties to pipeline and revenue. It's critical for business growth. But I think the kind of confidence and the faith in the executive team and in this work and the project has been critical to us getting off this launch pad.
There are a lot of different elements to this that are, changes for you. We talked about flipping the script on the B2B narrative and the change of the logo and the branding and the positioning and adding a character and being really kind of outspoken and bold from a design perspective. What about this throughout the whole kind of process of developing this rebrand, this repositioning, this campaign, do you think kind of scared leadership the most? And did anything kind of end up on the cutting room floor because it was a step too far for leadership?
No. And that's one of the things that we're most proud of, is that this is one of the few rebrands I've worked on where I think we achieved everything that we were trying to achieve. Leadership, to their credit, trusted us enough to go in these crazy directions. I think there was a moment, Greg and I were in Amsterdam, and I think it was the first time we had presented all the thinking that had gone into the rebrand to pretty much all of leadership. And there were some people who, and rightly so, they were like nervous about, is too far? Are we crazy? What's happening? I think after Greg and I presented to them, so many people came up to us after the presentation, like, we get it now and we're excited about it. So I think that was, at least for me, a big turning point as far as them going from being nervous to very excited.
Yeah, especially when a lot of those people, like, I think the boot camp or our sales kickoff is a great example because the audience there was executive members throughout the organization, sales and customer success. And I think the hardest part was like in those moments where they're like, I don't get it, or, this isn't resonating with me. And there were times we came back, but we're like, it's not for you. And I think like it was a hard conversation, but it was also like an aha moment. And I remember Dan, like in some of the early design concepts, like when we were pitching it initially and kind of going on the internal tour, we'd go through and, we'd show all the great colors in the video and the animations. And then we had a slide at the very end that just like stacked us against the competition, like before and after. And it's funny because we'd spent 45 minutes like, showing off this amazing thing that we were so proud of. And then this one slide at the end, everyone's like, I get it.
That was the thing that got all the attention. Like, we were just talking about, you squint your eyes at the screen and you can't tell who's who. And then we show the new brand, and there was no mistaking us against our competition or against a lot of brands, really.
You mentioned kind of making the rounds internally and having worked at several large corporations, particularly back when people were, in the office all the time. There was always a lot of internal communications and activities happening when we had a big change or a big launch. Did Optimizely have the same? Like in my brain, I can picture like life-size cutouts of Mark in your lobby and, the changing of your SharePoint site internally to all of the new branding. Like, did a lot of that happen? And did that help get people excited about this change?
I think that was one of the more challenging parts, especially now, like, because I think presenting things a couple years ago versus today, where like things can get out so quickly, we were very protective, which wasn't always easy. Like when we did internal presentations, we stopped recordings. We were very selective with what we shared. We were very selective with what we actually would send to people because we knew the direction we were going to go, and we felt that the second it got out there, if it got out there too soon, it could put some of what we were trying to accomplish in jeopardy. And again, a lot of that was also leading up to having this big moment, this big launch, this reveal. So it was interesting. Like we definitely, had our town halls, we would do our presentations, we would bring people along the journey. But I think that was one of the tougher parts for me because I'm by nature like a collaborative person. I want to, bring in as many people and kind of share ideas and get feedback. But I think we really trusted the core team throughout the process. And I think that helped. Dan, anything to add there?
And that's been honestly probably one of my favorite things, is seeing how proud and excited the company is about what we've done with the brand. And you can just feel this new energy, which is what I was hoping would happen, what I thought would happen, but it's happening. So it's great.
Yeah, and I think when you have those internal employee advocates who are excited and who kind of internalize the changes and internalize the brand, it certainly helps from an external perspective, when they're talking about the brand, either with customers or on their social media, LinkedIn, whatever, you can kind of feel that excitement and that sense of ownership. So it's nice to hear that that was something that came through with you guys doing all this internal positioning. So there's kind of a little bit of attention that's under the surface at sort of the heart of this campaign. You're positioning yourself as an AI platform, as a lot of people are these days, but through Mark and with Mark, you're kind of arguing that human creativity is really what matters the most. So how do you build that brand and that position as an AI leader, as an AI platform, without kind of being like everybody else, like without being a me too among all the SaaS platforms they're switching to this AI heavy type of platform?
That one's all you.
It's all me.
He's passing the buck.
Yes, he definitely is. I mean, I'm a creative first, always will be a creative first. With messaging, I believe if it sounds like bullshit to you internally, it's going to be perceived as bullshit externally. And so I think that has been one of the filters that we've passed everything through. I think we're very much self-aware of who we are and what we are, but we really do mean it when we say that we want to help people be more creative and help get rid of the things that maybe they hate doing, or maybe they're repetitive tasks that they're just sick of. So I think that's where we've been putting a lot of our energy, really trying to enable people to be more creative. So I think that's been received well for the most part. There's like on the giant ant video on Instagram, which they got a lot of love for. I think there's one comment about shame, this is for an AI company. But the rest of it was all love. So there's always going to be people who, and I get it. Like as a creative myself, I totally get it. I get the fear, I get the trepidation, but I mean it when I say our intentions are good.
Yeah. And you mentioned growth a couple times, Dan, and that's actually our tagline that ended up kind of going out with the campaign launch as well is free to grow. And to me, one of the more powerful pieces to that is there's kind of multiple layers to it. There's the company, like, yeah, we want to help our customers increase revenue and grow their business. But then, as you said, I think there's that personal nature as well. Like it's a challenging time for marketers. We try to figure out like, how do we navigate this world of AI? How do we do work that is meaningful, distinctive, and how do we make sure that we're especially, when you think about like Dan, like you have designers on your team that are, where we're asking them to help us, improve AI models. And like there is a little bit of fear that gets tucked in there where it's like, well, wait, am I doing work that potentially is going to replace my value? So I think some of that is like it's shifting, I think, the focus and the way that the work gets delivered and what it's doing. It's like we're taking these incredibly talented people and we're almost using AI as an amplification tool for their talents and then allowing other marketers to take that and use that. But I think that human piece to it, kind of going back to your original question, Andy, like it all starts there. Like AI to us it's the amplifier. It is not the vehicle for someone just to go in and have it generate an idea and then hit publish. And I think like the one area I think we're seeing the most excitement for, like Dan, you were talking about people's excitement for the brand, is like this illustration layer. I think that was one of the areas, and it's actually why I deferred the question to you, Dan, because I thought you were going to talk about some of Andre's work and the way that was brought to life within the identity, because it's not a campaign. It is literally baked into our entire visual identity, this illustration layer. And the fact that we went through and we explored with, 5 or 6 different artists and we made this selection of this guy, Andre, who his work, it's incredible, but it's also very non-traditional, surreal. I mean, some of his things are, a little political even, but, we knew like the style, and you kind of asked a little bit about like, hey, are there certain things where it's like, are we going too far? I remember that was one of the areas I was like, man, are we doing this? And Dan, I felt like I always leaned back on your confidence of like, man, this is the part people are going to remember. And you were so right.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see the reaction to Andre's work. And you're absolutely right. He grounds us in the human part of our brand.
Yeah, and I think this is it's a very weird and unique time. And as marketers, I think we feel one way about AI, or maybe multiple ways about AI, but then also as a human being, I see how AI is being perceived, just in my own community, my own personal community, and the way it's being talked about in marketing spaces. Sometimes those are very different. Sometimes they overlap. So I think it's a very complex time for anybody who's talking about AI to kind of, walk that line between, yes, this technology is great and it's awesome and it's wonderful. And we think it's going to do great things for not just marketers, but for other industries and for our personal lives as well. But we understand that there are concerns and challenges and risks involved. And, we're trying to mitigate that. And it sounds kind of like that's the direction that you're going, is a very human direction, is, we understand that this is a technology, but we're humans and we want to make sure that the people who are seeing our messages from your perspective understand that we see you as humans. Is that kind of was part of the conversation?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. And it is, I mean, one thing that's comforting to me is that we're all figuring this out together. Like anyone who says they have this whole thing figured out is lying. Um, I think that's been a fun process, figuring that piece out. And I mean, just to give you an example of what we were talking about previously that I think is connected is I might be a masochist, but I still do not use AI at all for concepting. Like that all comes out of here. And that's the way I love it. Like that's the reason I got into this profession to begin with. I find our AI useful for lots of other things, but that's not one thing that I use it for. And I think that's what's been really fun for me to see is how different people find different value in our products and in AI in general.
Yeah, and you guys have so many different parts of the platform, like you mentioned earlier, the A/B testing and the CMP and the DAM. And so I think, AI plays different roles depending on where you are in the platform. And you guys have your Opal AI layer that is built throughout. I think that, you have a lot of opportunity there to be able to say, look, we're using this in different ways. You can use it within the platform, but we understand that there are humans behind the keyboard who are using our platform.
Yeah, and we have some interesting new product enhancements coming out in the very near future. One of which we're calling virtual teammates, and it's literally creating very dedicated agent, not to replace, but to support certain critical functions. So, like Dan, I know on your team we have an amazing creative director, Mishi. Oh, sorry, our creative operations project manager, Mishi, and she's doing so much from like intake and supporting and communication and collaboration. Like this one person, why I'd love to hire, three more people. It's like, the reality of business today. It's like we're expected to find ways to use, especially as an AI company, our own solutions, which we lean into heavily. So, we're having conversations with our product team and with Mishi to figure out, okay, great. Like, how can I stand up a virtual teammate that's going to help me be more efficient? It's going to take away the stuff that she doesn't enjoy doing, right? To give her more time for the human collaboration, for the creative processing. And we're seeing that throughout the platform. Like our content teams are using virtual teammates to really go through and make sure things are optimized for GEO and going through, like, obviously, we want to make sure like tone of voice when it's appropriate, but on the editorial side, right, we know that's what's really ranking and getting authority in a lot of the LLMs. So making sure that we're using our technology and it's checking for like EEAT and making sure that like things are structured in the right way, that the LLMs are going to not only pick it up but find it valuable enough to serve at the top of the results to people looking for information.
So you have stated, I've seen you say that the goal of Mark was for people to ask who he was, right? Who is Mark Eting? You said early on in this podcast that you actually have search traffic coming in through that. And you want people to kind of get in on the joke, right? It's marketing. Is that happening? What are you seeing? Are you getting the results that you're looking for? Are there areas that maybe you haven't seen the results that you're looking for and you're maybe pivoting a little bit, which is the best thing for marketers to do is to look at the data and pivot, right? How are the results coming along?
Signs are great, but it's a lot of it, I'll be honest, is coming through paid media. And so with the video series that we did with Giant Ant, we've excited to say we have over 3 million views across CTV and socials and our YouTube platform. There is definitely organic traffic, but a lot of it is paid. But to me, the good piece to that is like it gives us signals in terms of what's working, what's resonating, how people are reacting to it. On the search side, again, and paid social ads, that's what's driving to our landing page. We're seeing really exciting data. And I guess not surprisingly, but like desktop users are spending 3 to 4 minutes going through the content, watching the videos. But on the mobile side, it's only about 87 seconds. And it's, given that a lot of it's paid advertising, it's going to drive a lot for mobile traffic. It's giving us signals to say, okay, how do we improve the mobile experience? What type of content offers can we serve to make it more easy for people to have an initial kind of light touch engagement? But it's also one of the nice things that this being a brand campaign is, we're not looking for a conversion. We're looking for a memory and a connection and someone willing to kind of stop the next time they see us on their scroll.
So where do you see the future of Mark? Are we going to see new iterations of him? Are we going to see him in new situations? Kind of where are we going with this guy?
We're having meetings about that very thing right now with our partners at Giant Ant. They have in all the years I've worked with them, I've never seen them come up with this many concepts for a round. of creative. So we can, like, I love it when people are, Greg mentioned this before, but I love it when people are as excited about the project as we are, because then you just get the best work that way. But long story short, we are working hard, deciding what that next move is right now.
And just one thing I'll add, I know we have, like we believe so much in kind of the potential of Mark. And I think one of the most exciting things we knew we were onto something is every time we would share this idea, like there's always 3 or 4 new ideas. Like we've talked about Mark as a podcast host, as a LinkedIn presence. At the end of the day, we want him to be a vehicle for education. And we have a platform that we call Opal University that's a free educational tool. It's a 1-week course for people to come in and for an hour a day. You don't need to be a customer. There's no commitment. It is just to learn. And you walk out and you've built 3 agents and you understand like how to, I think, deconstruct like what an agent is and what it takes to create it. I think most people walk out there like, wow, I can do this. It wasn't that hard. But we have a huge waiting list, which is really exciting. We have 5,000 people who are ready to enroll, but we're only taking 50 to 100 people in a week. So one of the thoughts is like, how do we bring Mark into this community? Like instead of trying to build a community around Mark, how do we pull Mark into a community that already exists and allow him to be that way to keep people connected? So maybe we joked, it's like, maybe he's the dean of the students, but like he's going to, curate information, keep things light, and then even potentially like, signing a graduation certificate. So I think there's just so many fun ways to go with it. I think, again, as I said before, like that's how I really believe we're onto something. And I said, I think the videos are probably the most exciting way to bring it to life, but all these other touch points, like every one of them makes a difference.
So congratulations on the launch and the changes and the rebrand and the repositioning. We originally started this conversation, I know, months ago before any of this was public. I reached out to Shaf, who I've known for many, many, many years, and said, hey, you want to have your team on the podcast? And he said, hey, we got some stuff brewing. And then, we had the conversation before it was public knowledge about these changes that were going to happen. So I'm excited to see them come to fruition. As I mentioned at the outset, I'm a huge fan of Optimizely CMP. Been a huge supporter of them of you guys for a long time. So I'm happy to see this transition, and I can't wait to see where Mark goes, where we find him. We're going to find him on the Seine or, in the Eiffel Tower or I don't know, somewhere down on Broadway or Times Square. So thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it. And we will chat with you guys later.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.